Welcome to CMPS 350 Web Programming Fundamentals course, and this is our first lecture, and we will start with HTML files today, and this is the main general roadmap of our course. So we will first start with the front-end development, in which we will first see HTML pages as we will start today, and then we'll see CSS for styling, and then the JavaScript, and then we will move on to the back-end development, in which we will see web API, data management with using Prisma, and Next.js for the dynamic content. So here is the outline of our today's work. And let's begin. So, introduction to HTML. So basically, for the front end, we have HTML. It's for content and structural organization. CSS for style, stylistic purposes, and JavaScript is for to make our website more interactive. Now, what is HTML? Well, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and basically it's just a text file. So you can easily create any HTML file, like we'll show it in the later, but you can literally open any text editor, write your HTML file, and then change the file extension, and then it will be an HTML file. And well, the main purpose is to describe the content and the logical structure of our page. So in an HTML page, well, we basically consist of tags that we give tags to each component, and also within an HTML file we can also give reference to other files. So actually it's a pretty sophisticated file, because it's one file but it gives references to other files and use their content in that file. So what are those files? Well, this can be a CSS file for the stylistic perspective, change the format of the text, and so on. And also we can give JavaScript files so that we will add some behavior, some interaction in our code. It can be for animation, for validation, input validation, and so on. And also we can put images, audio files, video files, and so on within our HTML file, so we can embed all these different files. Well, HTML pages has an head and a body. Well, that sounds simple. So what does it mean? Well, in a file we put we basically first start with tags. We use tags to identify, to differentiate and to describe the document contents. And one of the main components is the head tag, and the other one is the body tag. And for these tags, what is a tag? Well, again, how do we do it? What is its syntax? Well, we use these greater and smaller signs. In between, we put our tag name. So as in this example, it can be head, it can be title, it can be body, it can be h1, h3, and so on and so. We will talk about it, what are these, in the following slides. And then this is a starting tag. We use this less than sign, our tag name, and then the greater sign, and then we put our component then. And then once we are done, we need to close our tag. So this is like our opening or starting tag. Now we put our content, and then we need to close it. In that closing, well, the syntax is easy. We need to use the same tag name. So if it is p, then now it is also should be also p, and again greater than equal to 7, but we just need this extra slash sign. So well, what do we do for this head part? Well, it provides the settings, like the title, the metadata, like the name of the file. You might put any explanation. This will not be, of course the title will be seen, but this settings is actually not for the users who visit your web page, but it can be for the web browser and so on. And the main part is in the body part, in which our content exists. So let's see this example. Actually, I copy pasted this in Sublime. So here we have this head file, head tag here again, and here we have this body tag, as you can see. So, but of course, when a user clicks this page, they will not see this, because the web browser, like Google Chrome, will render that code, and then it will show us. Of course, this is the wrong file, sorry. It will show this, whatever we put in that one, it will render that code. When you look at this code again, what we say is, okay, heading 1 between h1 tag, subheading 2 and subheading 3, and then if you go to our web page, well, you'll see that, and you see some font differences. It's because of the tag itself also. And then we have the paragraphs, or by using these p tags we define the paragraphs. So yes, now this is our first web page. Now let's move on. Well, here you see another example, and I think this is an important example because this shows again references to other files. Like within this same document, we show that, okay, we'll use this JavaScript file, here is our CSS file, and so on. So we are able to give references, we are able to embed other files into our HTML file. And well, what can we do with the HTML? Well, first, and the main reason that we use HTML file is to define the logical structure of the HTML document. So what will be its component, like what type of information that we would like to show to the users, and what will be, like, think of a web page, like you click a link and then where will you go, what is the navigation structure for this web page. We define it with all these HTML files, and we can use HTML file to collect input from the users, so that, like, you need to sign up on a website, and then you need to fill a form, and then you fill it and then send that data to the server. So HTML allows us to do this operation, and it can be also used to show data in different forms. Like we can use tables, we can embed audio, video files, and some other capabilities like drawing graphics even in Canvas even. Now let's talk about the page structure. Well, when we are defining, I want you to think about that we are trying to design a web page. So in a web page, then you will see what do you want to show to your users, and you need to group your information. Think about a news portal, for instance. So they might have a title here, they might have some links to other websites. Like we can even look at for instance, if you go to aljazeera.com, so here we have this links that leads us to other web pages. Here we have some news, and then here's some at the right side. They also put some more news that you might be interested in. At the very end of the page, you see that like a footer, they show about us, how to contact them, and so on, and so their social media account, and so on. Now going back to this one, so we want to somehow organize the information that we want to show to the users. So how can we do that? Well, again, by using our tags. So we will use some semantic tags to define the logical structure of the page. This is one important part, is when you are using HTML, the style is not our top priority. You can do some very basic styling like the font and the color and so on, but we want to leave this kind of style per purposes to CSS files. So we are basically trying to show, okay, how should my website look like, what should I show it, and so on and so. So for these ones, again, we can use, and we need to identify the information types and the components that I put in my HTML file by using these semantic tags. So what are these? Well, we will see some of them, like the header one, for instance. First, again, it's the introductory content for your logo, for your set of navigational links, and then um, the navigation nav part. It's used for, again, to if you to put the links, how you navigate through the website. The footer that we have showed in the Al Jazeera website, it is, again, um, to put information about their copyright, about us, your contact information, and so on and so. And for the A side, we can put the data that can be still easily removed. So A side is the one that is here. It's not the main comment, but you just want to show it, like as in this Al Jazeera website. You remember that? Let's go back to here again. So they put the advertisement, which is not the main content, of course, and also some other news articles. Here's the main article, but here is also some other news articles for self-contained documents like blog posts, news articles, and so on. And you can also use sections to group the contents. Like, well, you can either use it to divide the page into different subject areas, like you have a politics section in your news portal. So you might say, okay, this is Middle East politics, this is US politics, this is about European, and so on and so on. Or, well, you might divide an article to multiple sections. Like when you read a book, you have multiple chapters in it, so each chapter can be a section. So you can use, basically, you can just use section tag to group the content. And the other one is the main. So it basically contains multiple articles. So it's your main information that you would like to show. Like as in this example, under a main tag, you can put multiple articles, and within an article, this is an example for our section. Like within an article, you can divide it into different sections, like the introduction, then the summary, conclusion, and so on and so. And let's just actually, before going to div content, let's see an example for this. So basically, uh, this is w3schools.com, and it is a very useful website to study this HTML, because we can write our code and then we can run it and then we can see its content immediately. So as you can see, what we have here is we have an HTML tag. In between, we have this body tag, and then in body tag we have this main element, which is our header, and that would be, of course, it seems like I forgot to run it, so that's why it was running min. Anyway, so now it's the main element, and then within that we have this main section, and within that main section we have one article, the other one article, and then another article, and so on. So, well, you might say, okay, what if happens if I say article, but instead of say I'll say nav? What will happen with this? Like, will it change anything here? Well, let's see. Let's run it. And, well, as expected, it will not change anything. Well, then you might say, okay, why do we do it? Like, so what's the point of using these specific names for these tags? Well, because what if I did say anything like my own tag name, and then if I use the same name here, I should be good. So again, I will just run the code again, and it didn't change anything at all again. So then you'll say, okay, what's the point of this article, nav, main, and so on and so. Well, the thing is, um, this is not for the users actually who visits your website, but it is actually for the programs that processes your web page. What can it be? Well, it can be like the search engines that indexes your web page. It can be any crawler that downloads your data and so on. So when you are giving these tag names, you are telling these computers saying that okay, like this is an article. So yeah, if you are a search engine, yeah, that's a good information for you because I want to be seen based on this content. But if you are saying okay, this is now, well, you're saying that okay, this is for navigation. So you might extract maybe some links from here, but it's not for indexing. Okay, so we are telling these computers to what is our goal. And why is that important? Well, again, maybe you remember from object-oriented programming, we always stress on that in programming it's really important to follow the tradition in programming, because your code should be understandable by others, and in this perspective your code should be also be processed by the others. So we need a standard. Like if everyone was using their own tag, and it would be pretty hard for these crawlers and so on, and also for your colleagues, like you are developing a web page, okay, and then you do not follow the tradition any of it, and then you just say I use my own tags. Okay, yeah, you can, but it also suggests that you're not a good teamwork. You're not a team working person. Yeah, I think you need to work only together. Because your code is very hard to understand. You're trying to implement your own language that we don't understand. So again, for this case, please follow the tradition. It's really important to use it, so that will make everyone's life much easier. And when we come to this segment, so in short, these tags, articles, now section, they're semantic tags. We know what an article means, so that's actual for us. We just use a tag. It's not it doesn't describe what it's supposed to do, but it is actually explaining us what we meant to do. And well, sometimes you might say, okay, I don't know how to name this tag. Well, you can use this div tag, and this is a generic container uh, of other elements. So it's a very generic, anything without any specific meaning. And now let's continue. Um, we can also put HTML tables. Tables in HTML files. So basically, just to show the data in a more organized way, that in which we have the rows and the columns. Well, how can we do it? Well, it's pretty easy. We just need to use these table tags to begin and end the table. And for each row, whenever I start, I need to use this tr, and then for the column, I need to use this td column. So here is an example. As you can see, now we start the table and we end the table. In between will be whatever we want to put in this table. So we start a row, right? And this is one row. And in that row, I have 1 and 2 columns. In that one, I put an image. And in the other one, I put this lecture 1 content. It has a link to this document. All right, this is one row. Then this is the second row, in which again I have two columns. I put an image, I had lecture 2 slides, and then my third row, in which I again have two columns. Actually, I would like to show you an example for this. So what I will do is I have content, and this that I copy pasted for this part. So I will just do one more copy paste from it and then put it in our web page. So let's say that we have this article. Okay, after that article I would like to put a table, as you can see, and we will see these food and body in the next slide. That's for now. I just want to show you this, so that's why I will delete these parts. Okay, these are the header part. I would like to delete those. We'll talk about it later on. Let's see first a simpler table. So let's run our code again. Of course, that's always important to keep your data indented. Yeah, and then let's run our code. So now you can see that now we have two rows, as you can see, and for each row we have one column, and then the second column we have the second column. So this is why cell 1.1, 1.2, and if you would like to add more columns, of course you can do it. You just need to add one more, and then maybe we can say this 1.3. And then, well, you might want to say, what if I don't have the enough same columns? Well, it won't happen. It will just leave it empty. And then you can also add one more column for this. And to make things more readable, well, again, you can just indent it even like this, so that it will be easier for you to read. Okay, this is one row that with 3 columns, and similarly this is our second row, in which you can, of course, now we need to also set this. Yeah, that's much more readable. But of course, when you look at this table, this is a pretty simple one. It doesn't have any header for the columns and so on. So what we can do is, now it comes to our other example. First I'll show it from the slide. So we can put an header in our tables by using this t tag, and also the main content in it. And then we can also even put a footer for that. Like, if you remember, in many tables, for instance, if it is a numerical data, we put the total of each column, for instance, at the very end. So you might use it in this way. And you can use this for the title of each column and so on. So let's do it. So I'll again go to my previously written code, and then I'll come back to here, and then I'll just do one more copy paste here, or maybe I can just put it at the end so you see both of them. Let me do this just to make it more readable. All right, so let's see what we have here. Now here is an interesting part. Now I put the head at the head is at the end, food is at the top, and body is in the middle. So when we say food, well, I expect it to be in the at the bottom of the table. Let's see what it will show us. Okay, so footer one here at the bottom as expected. So even though I put it at the top, so that's a nice thing, because actually the order of T body, T foot, and T head is not important always, and always. T head will be put at the top, foot at the bottom, and the body will be in the middle. But of course, while in programming, well, it's always good to make things uh, easy, and you don't need any unnecessary complexity. So let's put the head always at the top, foot at the bottom, and so on. But now, as you can see, that now here we have, for the T head, we have one row with two columns. For the body part, we have two columns and two rows, sorry, and two columns. And this is the footer part. And as you can see that this is our, again, um, for our header part, but it automatically put it in bold, so that this is shows that it is our title title for each column. All right, so yeah, this is the example that I showed, and I think we can move on. And this is again the example that we have seen. HTML files with media files like images, audio files, and even video. So our pages will be actually much more sophisticated. For instance, if you want to add an image, well, we have to use this img tag. And note that this tag doesn't have a closing tag that we will see in the following slides. And in order to add a file, well, we just need to define the source. In this source, basically, this specifies the path or the URL to the image that you want to display. And what is this ALT? Well, this is an alternative text. This is for your image. Well, this will not be, this is shown when your image can't be loaded. And also it is also important for accessibility, because as the screen readers will read these tags for the visual impaired users. And here you see also how we can embed video files. In a video file, again, we need to now use this video tag. And in this one, well, there's like this controls that allows you to somehow modify your video. Like here we set the width and the height of your video so that we can show how large we would like to show that video file. And again, this source shows the source file, the path for our video file. And similarly, well, you can also use this audio file, in which you can embed audio files like MP3 or WAV files. And in that one, again, we have this source file in which which directs us to the path of our audio file. And again, we have the controls tag here. Now let's see an example. Let's just look at this. Let's go to our example code, and I just copy pasted the code that is written on the slides. As you can see here, this is our examples file that we have the videos with the width and height and so on for that one. And here is our video file, and in that video file, again, we can run that one, so you will be able to run video files. And also for the audio files, you can also run them, and then your users will be able to listen your audio files. Most of the tags are like containers, so we have a starting tag, and then we have a closing tag, and in between we put the contents, like the ones that we have seen previously. However, some of the tags do not have any closing tags. These are called self-closing tags, or as another name, they're also called void elements. The reason is that, well, simply they're empty. They don't have any elements. They don't have any content. That's why they don't have any closing tags. What are those? Well, the ones that we have seen, for instance, in this example, the image one. So in this image one, well, basically it just tells the HTML to say that, okay, just put an image. It doesn't put an image here. It doesn't have any content. The other examples are like area, BR for a new line, HR for a horizontal line to separate to separate contents and so on. And well, the way that it is used, well, it changes throughout the versions of the HTML. But in the latest version is that in HTML5, well, you can either use this with these tags. This use of the slash is absolutely optional. What it means is, now I will show it in our code. Let's say that here is, remember, our web page, and we want to put, let's say, an horizontal row. So for that one, we need to put an HR, and well, maybe we can put here some text more before that. So, and I would like to put a new space also first from our audio file, and let's say horizontal line, just to show what we are trying to do. And then, well, let me save it, and then let's go to our file, and let's refresh our web page. As you can see that now we have this horizontal line at the very end. You see this long line here. Well, I'll go back to my code, and then I'll say again, we don't have any closing tag like this. We don't have it here. But as an optional, what you can do is you can also put here slash. That's completely optional. So I would like to put one more text here, text to separate these two lines, and then I'll say one more horizontal line. I will save it, and I will go back to our web page, and then we will just refresh it again. Again, you can see that our second horizontal line. So to go back to our topic, well, there are some tags that are empty, and their most common name is self-closing tags, and they don't have a closing tag, and you can use the slash. It's completely optional in HTML5.